Hi guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and it's time for my thoughts on Elizabeth May's The Falconer, which you guys voted for in this month's Stack of 5, and I am more than happy to oblige. The full synopsis as well as links to the book can be found below, but real quick, all you really need to know is that it is the story of a noblewoman in a sort of steampunk Scotland who has the ability to see and fight fairies who are vicious, vicious things. And she is on a quest for revenge as one of the fairies killed her mother. And that's all you need to know. I'm going to get right into it. I already told you guys in my May Rewind that this did get a thumbs up, but that it started a little bit rocky for me, so I'll start with those rockier points. Since it is supposed to be a steampunk story, I'm going to start there. The steampunk elements felt a little bit like an afterthought. I don't think they were, but they felt that way. Steampunk, when it's done well, it infuses everything. So not just technology that Victorians wouldn't have had. That to me is just an afterthought. That's the trappings of steampunk, but steampunk I think goes beyond that, and you have to kind of consider how having this technology that they didn't actually have would have changed the way they lived and the people that they were. So there needs to be some logical basis and a real world building, and not just our Victorian era with some cool gadgets thrown in. And that is what it felt like sometimes, especially because a lot of the gadgets were really over the top and created by the main character herself, which, though I like the idea of her being sort of tech savvy and hands-on and an inventor, I think that's cool. There needs to be some logic to it. Where does the daughter of a Marquess find the time? And is it considered socially acceptable? How did she learn? Is she self-taught? Where does she get the supplies? And just it needs to feel more a part of her life than just, you know, when she needs something, she sits in her bedroom and makes real quick and ta-da, she's got like, you know, a laser shooter or something. It needs to feel like there's a real grounding to it, and it didn't always. It sometimes felt like, oh, this would be cool, and so it was written in. And things like that stick out like a sore thumb and just kind of shake me out of my willing suspension of disbelief, which you really need when you've got a steampunk Victorian story about fairies. You need all of the grounding and verisimilitude that you can get. The other thing that made it start out feeling just a little bit rocky for me was the main character herself. I believe her name is pronounced Aileana, but I'm not positive. She is a very, very bloodthirsty character. I mean, she truly enjoys the kill. And while I find that interesting, again, it was something that was sometimes a little over the top, and I wasn't sure how much I'm supposed to be rooting for her, or is she an anti-hero? Is she just a complete psychopath? And if she is a complete psychopath, how the reader is supposed to feel about that? Now, this eventually did sort of come around, and those questions started to be answered, and then I liked it a lot more and really appreciated the bloodthirstiness a bit more. But in the beginning, before you really know her, when that's all you're really being given, she just seems a little off. And I do love me a good anti-hero, so I'm not opposed to her being a psychopath, but again, it just needs to feel like whatever it is really an intentional choice and for the best effect. And sometimes it just felt like, I don't know, borderline cheesy, I guess, and I hate to say that, but it was a little bit. It leveled, it found its footing, and once it did, I was thoroughly engaged and able to sort of forgive some of the rocky start that the book had. There is an unexpected humor throughout the book that I really appreciated and I thought gave it balance, especially in interactions with the character of Derek, who is an itty-bitty little fairy, little pixie, and I loved him. And there was also quite a deal of romantic tension, which again I think was to balance the story a bit, but maybe went a little heavy on the romantic tension in some points. But you know what? I don't care, because I liked it. I really liked the main male lead, Kieran, who is a fairy that's a bit tortured. You know, you gotta have, if you have a story of bloodthirsty, want-to-kill-you fairies, you've got to have that one that somehow manages to be brooding and sexy and make up for the other fairies, right? I think it's obligatory at this point. So once all of those elements came together, it really started working for me. I flew through it. There was never a point that, even when it was in that rocky start, that I wanted to put it down. That's not entirely true. There were a couple of times when I thought if it remained rocky, I probably would put it down. But it didn't. It got over that hump quickly enough for me to really be invested and start liking the story and liking the characters and wanting to know more about the world. I do think it has a tendency towards the unbelievable. There are times when the main character is very concerned about her reputation, not because she wants to be, but because she has no choice to be. She still is a Victorian noblewoman. Society has expectations of her. I liked that that element sort of crept in, but it was a little inconsistent. She gets away with a lot of crap, and she does a lot of ridiculous things, and I'm not quite sure how believable that is in the sort of repressive society that she lived in. I think Solace by Gail Carriger did this really well. The main character of Solace does these things that weren't considered appropriate for a lady, and, you know, sometimes she fights and she has her little steampunk tools that she uses that are disguised as something else, and she keeps inappropriate company and does inappropriate things, but it always has repercussions. And even when there aren't immediate repercussions, it's still, you always know that what she's doing is a little risque and that if anyone catches her, she's going to get in trouble. The Falconer has very similar elements, and there is enough of that running theme of this isn't ladylike behavior and she's doing something untoward. That is in there, but not necessarily in a way that I felt like there were actually going to be repercussions. You know, there's a difference between I shouldn't do this, if I get caught it's going to be bad, versus if I get caught doing this, I'm ruined. Now, there were times when there were definite repercussions and they were very suited to the Victorian setting, and I really, really appreciated that, and it added a great level of tension and authenticity to the story. I just wish it would have been carried through a little bit more, or that maybe she would have been a little bit more cautious, more Victorian woman seeming than modern woman plopped down in Victorian era seeming. It was just an issue of consistency. And so when it was on and it nailed it, it was really good, and when it didn't, it was glaring because you know that it can be on. You know, it was just a mixed bag sometimes. But like I said, once it kind of found its footing and got there, I was either able to let those things go or they just kind of faded into the background, and I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to book 2. I will absolutely read it. Who knows, maybe Elizabeth May's writing will grow or the editing will be a little tighter and I'll love it even more than I liked this one, but I was really, really hoping to love this one. In the end, I liked it, but liked it on the higher side, but just not quite love, and I wanted to love it. And though it is typical in some ways, and there are other stories, as I've mentioned, that are very similar, it's still its own thing, and it still does have some uniqueness to it, with maybe even a little bit of a feminist bent to it, which I appreciate. Yes, I went a little negative, a little more than I meant to, but that being said, I already told you I got a thumbs up. And I do recommend it. Don't let my reviews scare you away if you are planning on reading it. But if you are a little dubious, those are some things to kind of know going in. And there you have it. That's what I thought of The Falconer by Elizabeth May. This one is out now, so you can pick it up. And if you've read it, I would definitely be curious what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for voting on it. And if you have any requests of videos or reviews or excerpts or anything that you would like to see, let me know. That's all for now. As always, thanks for watching and happy reading!